Ooh, a spicy question. I
because
love
the writing is sort of everything, right? Like you kind of can fix plot holes, but if the writing isn't
So some
there,
readers love that, and some readers are like, but I wanted more of this. So it's kind of a gamble.
Hello and welcome back to the Right and Wrong podcast. On today's episode, I am joined by best-selling novelist and screenwriter. She has been nominated 5 times by Carnegie for her children's books, and she is also about to release her adult romance debut. It's Elle McNicoll. Hello.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for coming on. Let's hit the ground running, jumping straight in with the new book, Unapologetic Love Story, out April 2nd. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, the title I hope can suggest a little bit about the book, but it's a London-based romance, and it's about two 30-year-olds, I would say, and the first is Raina Lewis, who is a podcaster like you. And she her podcast is about disability and being a woman who's autistic and neurodiversity, and trying to humanize it and normalize it and talk about love and loss and fashion and sex and work. And her star is kind of on the rise. She has a very, very loving fan base, but the upper echelons of London aren't so keen on people who are a bit different. So she's still trying to make her way in London. And one day at a very fancy party in the Victoria and Albert Museum, which is not inspired by the HarperCollins summer party in any way, she meets Tom Branimir, who is a Scottish working class journalist who has made a living bringing down scammers, bringing down people who lie to their audiences for money. He's very jaded, very cynical. He does a very good thing. He's kind of like the Robin Hood of print media, but he's very, he's tough about it. He's been branded the king of cancel culture by a very sort of Piers Morgan type editor, and he's sort of feared by everybody. And his agent says, I think you have to write about something a bit nicer for once. You have to write something light and fun and fluffy. And so he scans the room and decides to pick someone a bit different. And of course, like all journalists, he promises that he will keep his feelings out of the story, which inevitably doesn't happen. But things go wrong. There's a dinner party that goes horribly wrong. There's a birthday party that goes very right. There's lots of London kind of staples. The London Marathon's a big part of it, the disabled runners especially at the London Marathon. And it's a book about being neurodivergent in the 21st century and not having it be sad and tragic. And unlike almost every disability love story that I saw growing up, the characters are both alive by the end. That's where the title, I feel, is also just being a little bit cheeky, just being like, this is a love story that happens to have a neurodivergent character, but nobody dies. It's unapologetically happy by the end.
Okay, amazing. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a lot of fun. It sounds like you've got all of the pieces in there to create a wacky time, but like you said, a fun time, a happily ever
Fingers
after.
Crossed.
Everyone survives.
there is depth. Like there is depth as well. It's not always fun to put like the deep parts in the elevator pitch, but the point is that it's not a sort of it doesn't make disability look like this depressing, heavy subject. It's still very human and hopefully relatable to readers. I've been so blown away by what readers have said so far. So yeah, it's got depth, but it is a fun time as well.
Amazing. Well, sounds absolutely fantastic. I'm sure once everyone can get their hands on it, they will fall in love with it, like the people who've already read it. You were saying, but you've done romance before in YA.
Yeah,
but this is
for adults. This is absolutely not to go in the school library, I would say. Although having been to a lot of senior school libraries, sometimes, they've got Sarah J. Maas on the shelves and I clock it and I think, oh, okay, This is different to when I was at school. But but this one I wouldn't really recommend putting in the library at school. But just because it's got some deeply romantic scenes, I'll say.
Deeply romantic, yes.
But realistically romantic. But it's, I have written YA romances before. This one is definitely in the adult realm, I would say.
Yeah. Okay. So
I mean, I'm still talking like a YA author. I'm still acting like but it's actually, yeah, it's been really fun actually to write without having to worry about our teenagers going to, I don't know, our teenage.
do something
Am I a
untoward.
bad influence on the readers?
Yes.
But it's nice actually. It's been freeing.
Okay. What was it that made you want to? Because previously everything you've written has been middle grade or YA,
Yeah.
all children's stuff. What kind of made you want to sort of branch out into adult fiction?
I started writing it in lockdown, and which was just when my career was starting. My first book came out in 2020, and I was doing a lot of press for that. So I was getting asked about my disability a lot, and which was fine. That's the job. And so I was just writing this for fun on the side, just to channel like some of those questions, because some of them can get quite absurd. And then a few years go by, and I went back to it when we started promoting one of my books was adapted for television, and so we had to do a lot of press for that. And TV press is a level of crazy that book press never reaches. And you'll be doing sort of junket interviews with America, where you do about 50 interviews back to back in a day on Zoom. And by the sort of 50th interview, the questions were getting really strange. And, they're asking they're saying oh, I would mention, just conversationally, I would mention my fiance or something, and their eyes would widen and they would look at me and go, oh my God, you don't live alone in a cave, you have people in your life. And I said yes. And then one of them very boldly leaned into the Zoom mic, I guess, and went, oh, do you have sex? And I remember going, not right now, Margaret, but last night but I was just why are you asking this? Why are you asking a very a really dehumanizing question? And then I went back to the manuscript and I thought, I like to put the crazy things that happen to me as an autistic person into my books, but I thought I can't put that in a middle grade, and I can't really put it into a YA, because my YAs, I do try and write YAs that are for teenagers, and so I thought I can't discuss this in a book, because none of my kids, first of all, I can't write about sex in middle grade, and none of the kids would be in this position in a YA. So I thought it has to be an adult book. And so it went into unapologetic, because Raina gets asked all kinds of strange questions. I mean, everything she gets asked in the book I've been asked, and every comment that is
Really?
written.
Wow.
Yeah, it's about just it's quite a niche experience, but I just thought that's kind of interesting in a way. Why are they so curious, and why are they so surprised that autistic people can have the same experiences that neurotypical people have? And then when I thought about growing up neurodivergent as a young woman, I thought, well, I don't actually blame them, because every time I saw anything about someone like me, whenever I was I was in the ICT lab at school and I was supposed to be researching the French Revolution, and I would just go on to The Guardian, it would be an article being oh, really wonderful, kind boy offers to take autistic girl to the prom and is applauded by a community. And I just thought, oh God, that's horrifying and patronizing. And then you would just see lots of other horrible articles. I mean, it was really bad in the 2000s. It was really bad. If you Googled autism, all the things that would come up. So it was really dehumanizing, and it didn't make you feel glamorous. It didn't make you feel the same as your peers. So I do understand when they ask those kind of mad questions. I'm like, oh, because you've consumed the same media as I have, so you think it's very much one thing. But it was enough to spark returning to the manuscript and working it out. And I couldn't really leave it alone. And yeah, it was just a case of this can't go in something for children. But I also love romance. I love romance novels. They're my go-to genre. I have since I was 13. So I wanted to do it just as a writer as well.
Okay. So there's
Sorry, that was a monologue, but
that was great. Yeah, no, there was a sort of passion within you to correct a narrative that you'd been told.
Yeah, because it's ugly. It's an ugly assumption.
Yeah.
So and yeah, it's also really bold, and I quite like things that are bold, even if they are a bit rude. So it was a fun kind of what if. So yeah.
Yeah, but like you said, romance is an area that you love the genre, you love it. Does that mean that you are thinking about maybe writing more adult romance?
Yeah, I hope so. We'll see how. I mean, it depends if I'm allowed
We'll see how
to.
this goes.
We'll see how this goes. I was definitely worried that because my middle grade books, they do well. Like I think I'm allowed to say that they do well. So I think some people are very much they're very comfortable with an autistic woman writing middle grade books, because there is also an idea of like, oh, you're quite childlike naturally, like you're very into. I've been asked a lot, like, are your middle grade books really good because you have like a child brain? And I'm always like, no, I don't have a child brain, I just have a working memory. And so I I love middle grade and I'll never leave it, but there are just so many things to say that you can't say in children's books, and rightly so. And I wanted to say them, and I have been reading romance since I was 13. Romance fiction, I mean, literally saved my life as a teenager. It got me through so much difficulty being a young adult in Scotland. I don't know how many Scots are listening, but they'll know, if you're not living in the centre of Edinburgh or Glasgow, which are glamorous and fun, if you're living in one of the little villages as a teenager, it's really hard. There's nothing to do,
Yeah.
and you can't escape everyone that's known you since you were 2 months old. It's really not glamorous, and so it's hard to imagine life being anything other than a bit sort of black and white. And romance fiction was my out. I was sort of losing my love of reading because of school, where they treated books like vegetables that you have to eat.
Yeah.
And I started picking up romance novels in charity shops with the really audacious covers. Like, if people remember those early like romance cover, they were really, now they're all very sweet and very and beautiful in their own way. But in the old days, they were gnarly, and but they were
Was
fascinating.
This like back when they were just like a 6-pack?
Yeah, the bodice
like
rippers. Yeah, it was it was boobs pushed up to the chin. It was bicep, really appealing to teenagers, being like, look at this. Like, aren't you curious about whatever this is? But then you'd read them and you would go, oh, okay, right, that cover is very audacious, but this is actually a brilliantly crafted story. There's amazing, I mean, especially the historical romances back in the day, like they were really deep, and they were really beautifully written and beautifully crafted and so human. And I just fell in love with them, and I couldn't get through them fast enough. And so I just thought this genre is honestly saved my mental health and my sanity. And then I would cut covers from sort of, I guess, appropriate books and stick them over the bodice rippers so that I could read them in school. So I'd just be reading.
Oh yeah.
It would look like I was reading The Catcher in the Rye, but actually it was like, I don't know, The Pirate and the whatever. And so it was just an escape. And I think that's what romance fiction is best at. It's best at kind of reaching through the pages of a very dull or a very chaotic or a very unhappy world sometimes, and saying, no matter how low this story gets, no matter what these characters go through, by the end, they're going to be all right. So I understand that the switch might look odd from the outside to some people, but for me and for people that know me, I've just been an absolute I've been devoted to this genre for so long, and so it just felt natural. But also every story I've written is a love story. It's just, this is the first one that's like also very sexual. So it's like, but every book I've written is about relationships in some way. So
okay, yeah, that's, I mean, yeah, I feel like we got a bit of a biography there, which is wonderful. That's what we're here for. We're here all about you.
Yeah, this is. Can I just say this is like the first proper interview for the book, so I am bombarding you, so you can cut a lot of that if you like.
Okay, great.
But
No, we're keeping everything. We're not cutting anything out of this. So in terms of the publishing process, this is what I'm kind of interested in here is, obviously you've released 8 or 9
this will be
children's
9 in
YA
total.
books.
For this kids, I've done 6 middle grades and 2 YAs. So yeah, 8.
Okay, so 8 children's books. Now that you're at the end of your journey, kind of nearing the end of the journey with Unapologetic Love Story about to come out, were there any surprises in terms of the differences between publishing an adult novel versus a children's one?
This is going to sound absolutely mad, but actually the difference is that for an adult book, a lot of the editing process, they ask you to, I don't know what the the best way to explain this is not sanitize, but sort of they want you to be less direct with children, which you'd think it'd be the other way around. You'd think that writing a children's book, there'd be a sort of editorial hand wringing of, oh, please, can we be careful that we don't let kids think it's okay to, I don't know, run away or whatever. But with the adult book, actually, it was much more. There was much more anxiety from editorial about like, oh, but there's a scene where Tom and Raina are in a seafood restaurant and they're eating lobster. And the editor put a note and said, oh, some people get very offended with lobster. I think we should change it to a different food. And I changed it to oysters, but I was like, aren't oysters like, I mean, it's in principle, it's the same thing, isn't it? But I'd never like, I was like, oh, because I'm from Scotland, we all eat lobster like, crazy. So but that was it was so interesting. I was like, oh, are adult readers more... But then I was like, no, the only reason adult readers are just more likely to get in touch than like a 9-year-old. Like,
yes.
It's just more, that's more like, but I was like, I promise, like if they're mad about the lobster, I totally appreciate that. And I will take that. I will accept, 1 star on Goodreads because I put lobster in the book. So that was interesting.
I guess it's not crucial to the story either.
No,
it's
it
not
wasn't.
like it changes.
And oysters are an aphrodisiac, so it worked out very well. But if people don't like oysters, I do apologize. I'm not, But that was interesting. And but other than that, it's not entirely different because and I will say that editor is brilliant and she's an absolute star. I love her. But every editor is very different, so it actually feels to me less to do with the age range of the novel and actually more to do with the editor. And every editor is very, very different. So like my YA editor loves lots of description and my adult editor doesn't. And so it's very, right. Everyone's so different that I really just treat it as like, this is me and this book with this editor, and it is our creature that we're forming. And I don't notice so much there being a huge difference between adult and children. But then I will say, if not that I expect anyone to have done it, but my kids' books there's all kinds of ways to write a kids' book, and mine are not the, oh my God, farts and drums and run it. Like those aren't my kinds of, I write quite interior kids' books, I would say, for sensitive kids. And so there wasn't like a massive departure, I think, in terms of writer's voice or that. It was just a content change that changed. So I didn't notice massive differences between the two, except that it's lovely to be able to swear, and and the editor wanted more. The editor was like, more swearing here, and so I mean, genuinely,
okay.
And so yeah.
So in some ways, you were sort of more corrected. There was more like, oh, we're worried this will upset someone than
I don't want to misrepresent the amazing team at Pan Mac, but no, I wasn't ever, it was never like, it was always very, but I just was like, oh no, this is absolutely, because adults have so much more of a voice in review spaces than children do, which I find so interesting. It's one of the weird things about writing for kids is that you can't really promote to them, you can only promote to the gatekeepers, but it was super interesting for me. And it's also interesting as a writer, because no matter what you're writing, whether it's romance, crime, fiction, nonfiction, whatever it is, there are moments in the editorial process where you have to, and I'm always trying to take other people's opinions on board. I'm very used to that. I'm very used to always kind of being someone who thinks maybe I'm in the wrong, maybe I'm the outlier here. But editorially, it's interesting because sometimes you have to stop and go, actually, this is the point of view. And this is, I do actually have to commit to this. So Tom in the book, for example, he's working class and he's from a similar background as me. And he's got a very big chip on his shoulder just because he's been through a lot of shit when he's in London. And and sometimes he would make remarks about London society and they would be highlighted and the publishers would say, oh, is this not a bit mean? And I just had to sort of go, is it mean to sort of criticize rich people? I would say something like, I don't know, like, I think, I don't know, I think that the wealth inequality is really bad or in London or something to that effect. And it was treated as if I'd like tied baby rabbits to a firework and been like, right, let's see.
Sure.
But and then I had to sit back and go, okay, I don't want to be mean. I never want to be mean, but this character, this is where he's coming from. And he has to go on this big arc, and he has to learn to soften, and he has to take that cynicism out of himself and learn that actually cynicism doesn't really make the world a better place. It just kind of makes you feel like you're making the world a better place. Like, he has to go on this arc. So I have to let him say a few things in the first half of the novel that might make people roll their eyes, or might make people, sigh and go, oh God, he's one of those. So it's those moments editorially where you have to say, I know this might not be super comfortable, and I'm used to that as well as an autistic writer, but I know this might not be super comfortable, or it might not be the thing that the majority of society experience, but I do think it has to go in. And those are the interesting moments. And, I concede a lot, and then sometimes, as every author does, you just have to push back a bit and say, no, actually, I think absolutely some people might hate this, but I think then the right people will also love it. And I would much rather write something that has a ton of 5-star reviews and a ton of 1-star reviews than just a bunch of people going, yeah, it was fine. So those moments, editorially are kind of where you dig down, and the editors at PAMAC are so brilliant because they're really good at forcing you to defend your dissertation in a way and sort of be like, no, I did this on purpose and here's why. And it's not that they're telling you, oh, that shouldn't be in there, or that's bad, or you're wrong for writing that. They're just trying to interrogate you and make sure that you do mean what you say. And that's such an interesting part of the editorial process.
Yeah, my experience speaking with editors and speaking with authors about kind of that relationship is what you've just said, is that I think editors they want some pushback. They don't want to just correct your writing and then for you to just do that and then give it back to them. They want a discussion. They want some kind of conflict, I guess.
And it's always a case of, do you mean this? Is this deliberate? Is this on purpose?
Yeah.
Because if not, then maybe it's not. Maybe we can't defend it. But if it's on purpose, and sometimes it's always fun when you do something on purpose and then the editor points it out and goes, is this on purpose? Is this real? And then 50 pages later it comes to fruition and the editor goes, oh, never mind, okay, cool, I see it now. And those are always fun. But yeah, it's great. You have to be able to. I think books have to have a point of view. I don't believe in turn your brain off reading or sort of apolitical books. I don't think they exist. So I think you have to have a point of view no matter what kind of story you're telling.
Yes, I think that's true. And in terms of defending a point, I think, when you're talking about for a character to have a redemption arc, they have to do something bad.
Yeah,
otherwise they're not being redeemed of anything. So
yeah, I have to have a bit of moral grayness, otherwise there's nowhere to go. And sometimes it's really, the most fun thing about writing an adult romance novel is the corrections that come during the sex scenes, where someone's like, his hand's already been here, how can it also be here? And so it's like, it's the really kind of clinical, the copy editor is just reading it and with a very objective view, just saying like, no, I don't think there'd be that much liquid. And you're like, okay, I agree, actually. Like, sorry, I'm so sorry, Jamie. I'm so sorry. But like, it's
that's like, funny.
It has to be clinical, and that always cracks me up so much. I really appreciate the copy editors.
I can imagine them with like a piece of paper, like trying to draw out a diagram to be like, no, but it doesn't make sense.
Unless they have the athletic abilities of a gymnast, I don't think this is going to work.
Yeah.
And it's great. Because when you're writing those scenes, you aren't in a sort of clinical place. So it's really great when they're like, I think they've moved by this point, and you go, yeah, no, you're right. Actually, they have. Thank you so much. Thank you for keeping everything. It's really strange, but it's really funny. It really makes me laugh. Sorry to bring down the tone of the podcast, but it does make me laugh.
It was so highbrow until then.
I thought it
was. Before we go over to the woodland cabin, I did just want to ask one more thing. So, if you could think back to when you were writing A Kind of Spark, and I guess the initial draft of this, or like when this first came to you, because that was around the same, no, it would have been just after.
Yeah.
A Kind of Spark came out in 2020, so you probably wrote that a year or so before. If you can think back to when you were first writing that, and then the many books since there, what was your process like when you kind of first started, and how much has it evolved over the years?
I think the process of writing the novel isn't that different. I usually have an ending in mind. I know where the novel is going to end, and that's what gives me the confidence to write from the beginning. So we're telling a story to get to this end point, and I am telling myself the story in the first draft. So I try not to worry about what other people will think, because it is just for me. I'm telling myself, I'm getting it out of the brain and onto the page. And then I call it draft 0. I don't even call it the first draft, because it's not going to be seen by human eyes. So it's just for me. And then the first draft is sort of like the chalk outline of the dead body on the ground. And then second draft is you start adding the organs. You give it a brain and a heart and some guts, hopefully, and a bit of a spine. And then the draft after that, you start putting the skin on, which is the sort of superficial. It's like a Frankenstein's creature you're building. And so that process hasn't changed, but what has changed is the anxiety, because when you write your first novel, no matter what kind of novel it is, or your first book, I should say, you're so blissfully ignorant. There's so many things you don't know about. And it's a really beautiful way to work. But once you're writing that second book or third or fourth or beyond, it never goes away. You are like, well, what if someone writes letters to me about this part? Or like it becomes quite, you're just so aware of, especially after Kind of Spark being my first book. And it just makes you so aware of how many eyes are actually going to land on the book. And that can sometimes creep into the creative process. So I think that has changed, but the process hasn't changed enormously. And having written for television as well, I find that novel writing is so much more fun than writing for TV. So so I try and enjoy it, but it is building up a Frankenstein's creature, and it's gonna look however it looks at the end. But my goal when I'm drafting, my goal is functionality. My goal is, does this look and act like a book? Does it work? And then when we get it to the editors, then I will let myself, like a wine that's been uncorked, I'll let it breathe, and then hopefully it tastes great because it's had time to breathe. And then I can start adding, again, points of view, specificity, all of the things that make hopefully a book great. So, but that process hasn't changed too much.
Okay, so you know where it starts, you know where it ends, and then do you sort of have checkpoints, or are you literally just kind of pantsing it?
Like
through?
A lot of, I write a sort of, I call it the sort of Wikipedia cheat sheet, which is like, when you read like a film synopsis on Wikipedia, and it's very, it doesn't go into the beautiful moments that make a film really special. It just sort of says, like, I don't know, Dr. Zhivago then walks, blah, blah, blah. And so it's very blunt. I'll write a synopsis like that, just again, so I know the beats of the story. I know where the climax sits. I know where, especially that middle section. I don't know. I'm sure a lot of writers you've spoken to, and yourself, I'm sure the middle section, it really is the kicker. Like not so much in romance. I really actually enjoy the middle in romance, but in other books, it can really, that's where a lot of confidence gets lost. So having the synopsis written out helps me. And then, as I said, I know where the story ends, and I don't think I can start a draft without that. And I can't really start a draft unless the character feels very specific, and the character feels like they have a want that they can go after, and they have a little bit of a wound that they're trying to cover up, and they have something that they're afraid of. Like all of these questions, if those are answered and I know where their story ends, that's all I really need to start a draft. But I will write a brief synopsis, a Wikipedia cheat sheet synopsis, just to know where. That's for when you get blocked, especially, is you just think, okay, I just have to move to this next portion of the story and I can return to that later.
Just get the words on the page. Can't edit a blank page.
Absolutely. I'm not a perfectionist. I don't have time to be in my job. I wish I could be. I'd love that, but I have to treat this a bit like I would imagine someone, if they're making an ice sculpture, does, where it starts as a giant big block of ice and you just start hacking away. You just pick up your ice pick and start going at it. And that's the only way to get it into a shape. And once it's in a shape, once it starts to look like a snowman or whatever you're making out of ice, then you can get really detailed, and then you can bring in the perfectionism, and you can bring in that really critical eye and start making everything very specific and deliberate and beautiful. hopefully on a deeper level. But initially, in that beginning of the process, I am just hacking away at a big piece of ice.
Well, that's great. I think it's great for writers to hear that as well, because I think some people are like terrified by the illusion that the book that they're picking up in the shop is like, wow, this person's a genius. How did they write this? And like, no,
Oh,
this
I'm
is
not
like
a genius.
This is like the 12th draft.
It's
yeah. Many people have seen this.
I'm not a genius, but also I totally get it, because I occasionally, when I can't sleep, I'll scroll on TikTok and I'll see sort of, I guess, hashtag writer talk, and it's people who have the most beautiful looking home offices you've ever seen. They have every color of post-it note. They have a perfectly coordinated desk. They have a bubble keyboard that looks like it's from the future. They have the most beautiful aesthetic in the world, and they've got a big board, like a conspiracy theory board, with their whole book planned out every single moment. And they say, okay, and now this is my perfume box where every character's scent is bottled and kept so that I can take a little whiff before I think about the character and I know how they smell. And I just think, dear God, like I'm in awe of them, but I am writing this on an old computer with Diet Coke and a prayer. Like it really doesn't look like this beautiful, glamorous, pink, purple, pastel, lilac dream that so many sometimes writers look like on social media. And that is valid and that is fine. And those people are going to write amazing books when they finally sit down to write and they stop highlighting things. But it's not how I work. And I worry sometimes that people look at that and go, oh my gosh, I don't have that level of organization. I don't have that access to beautiful stationery. I don't have all of those things. Maybe I'm not meant to do this. Yes, you are. There is, like, every single writer I know is so different. Everyone does this so differently, as I know that your podcast shows. Everyone is so different, and there's no. I think it's important not to get sort of fixated on things and be like, well, I want a career like so and so I have to do it like them. There is no replication in this business. Like, if you can do the exact same things as another author and the outcome will be so different. Every author can be given the same basic opening sentence and told to write a story from it, and everything they write will be so different. And that's freeing, I think. But I do worry sometimes about young writers, that they see all this beautiful, a very glamorous and aspirational view on being a writer, and they feel like they can't achieve it. I do worry for them, and I want to tell them, no, I'm very, very not that way, and I've made a living doing this full time. Like, you'll be okay.
Well, fear not, because the other side of that coin is that I can't remember who it was. I had an author on a while back she was young. It was her debut novel, and I think she said she'd written probably 3/4 of it in the notes app on her phone while she was commuting to and from work. So,
and I bet it's a masterpiece. I bet I know that'll be a masterpiece. So there's no rules.
Yeah, and that in some ways is the beauty of writing, is that you don't need, and like, really, you don't even need a computer. I would recommend one.
No,
but you could do it with a pencil and a piece of paper, and
just like the people did for thousands of years. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But I mean, I wouldn't recommend it for the editing phase. But
no, I think the publishers would have an issue with it. But yeah, some people use typewriters, which I love. I wish I could do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, or maybe they just do it for social media and then they actually put it on a computer. I don't know. But
maybe
it's really there's a big gap between how writing is portrayed and how it actually can look, and I never want people to fall into that trap.
Yes, yeah. And most books are written in the edits. That is absolutely true.
Absolutely.
We are at the point in the episode where I will drop you off, Elle, and ask you, if you were snowed in at a cozy woodland cabin in the middle of nowhere, which book would you hope to have with you?
It would probably be Romantic Comedy by Curtis Sittenfeld, who is a brilliant novelist, and it's a novel about SNL, which is the American comedy.
Oh yeah, Saturday Night Live.
Yes, Saturday Night Live. And she doesn't call it that. She gives it a whole new pseudonym, but it's very obviously Saturday Night Live.
Okay.
And it's just really fascinating. Every time I read it, it's a very niche, again, it's niche. It's not something everyone might find interesting, but I find it super interesting. And I love the way that she talks about it's called romantic comedy, but because it is a romantic comedy, but it's also a study in what that means as a genre. And I love her sort of thesis on it. And every time I read that book, something new crops up. So it would be that, or it would be Ulysses by James Joyce, just to finally get that done.
Finally tick it off the list.
Finally, like at dinner parties, be like, I've read Ulysses. I was in a snowed-in cabin and I read it.
I forced myself to read it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, those are great choices. Romantic comedy. That sounds great. That sounds really interesting. Ulysses is obviously Ulysses. So
yeah. Congrats to James Joyce on Ulysses. Yes.
You know what's funny about that? It made me think of there was a study a few years ago where they were basically interviewing. It must have been in the UK, and they were interviewing people to see how much they'd read and what books they told people about that they had read. And apparently, the number one book which people have not read but they say that they have read is 1984.
Oh, really? That explains why we are where we are. So that's
one's actually read
that's
it.
That's great. No.
That being said, I have read it. Incredibly depressing. I think people should read it, but it's not enjoyable. I'll tell you that.
No, it's not.
It's incredibly depressing.
I'd love that as a blurb on the front cover of any book. Not enjoyable, but you should read it.
You should read it. You should read it, but it's like a penance. Like you have to serve your time reading that book. Amazing. Okay. Fun choices. So next up, we are going to go back a bit and talk about when Elle first started writing, how she got her foot in the door of publishing, and a bit more on the industry side of things. That will be available in the extended cut at www.patreon.com/right and wrong. I said that so weirdly, but we go with it.
I've had the good fortune of being the first to do a few things in this industry, and it's not easy to do it, but it is worth it. So do things your own way and kind of stick to your inner voice, even though you're not the majority. I don't know if that was in any way articulate.
Yeah, no, that's great. That was brilliant. A lovely way to round off the episode. So thank you so much, Elle, for coming on and chatting with me and telling me all about your adult debut, An Unapologetic Love Story. I'm really excited for it to go out into the world, for everyone to get their hands on it. It's been amazing chatting with you and hearing about your publishing journey.
Thank you, Jamie. It's been really great. Thanks for having me on.
You're so welcome. And for anyone listening, if you want to keep up with what Elle is doing, you can find her on Instagram at Elle McNicoll Official, on TikTok at Elle McNicoll, or on her website, ellemcnicoll.com. Unapologetic Love Story is out on the 2nd of April in all the usual places. And to support this podcast, like, follow, and subscribe. Join the Patreon for ad-free extended episodes and check out my other podcast, The Chosen Ones and Other Tropes. Thanks again to Elle, and thanks to everyone listening. We will catch you on the next episode.